In this survival game you'll build a base, search for weapons and explore the island to find out what's actually going on there. It's once again set in a Pacific Northwest style environment, although Sons of the Forest will feature dynamic seasons to help introduce more variety. The island is populated with mutants and cannibals that hunt you. Pluck fresh salmon directly from streams in spring and summer. Collect and store meat for the cold winter months. You're not alone on this island, so as winter rolls in and food and resources become scarce, you won't be the only one looking for a meal. One of the more significant changes between the Forest and Sons of the Forest is a new AI system which governs the NPC behavior. Enemies will also have their own ecosystems, with your actions helping to influence whether mutants are more likely to stick to the network of underground caves or roam the wilds above. The cannibals will find expansive ways to coordinate their attacks. You can even use fear as a weapon against them if you're smart with your resources. Sometimes an open world doesn't have to push boundaries, it just has to be fun. You aren't a generic protagonist driving around a tropical island mowing down mercenaries, you're Spider-Man with the entirety of Manhattan at your disposal. He swings, crawls, soars, and runs basically everything a spider can across a world that is overwhelming in its detail and density. Crimes popping off every couple of minutes that encourage you to engage with combat and exploration in perfect symphony. You can find yourself obediently chasing down icons when chasing the Platinum Trophy, but these are rare occasions far outshined by other moments of brilliance. Unfortunately, this repetitive gameplay becomes exhausting after a while. The game has once again succeeded in making me absolutely immersed in it, and my open world fatigue doesn't come into play at all. Moving around in the spider adventure is simply unmatched. Swinging through the canyons works so well and is so much fun that you can really spend a lot of time on it alone and without any task. Virtual Manhattan is just crying out to be explored. If it weren't for all the unspectacular side stuff that you just pick up along the way, not the collecting tasks, there would be something missing. Subnautica is a template for what open-world survival games should strive to be. This aquatic survival game is an underwater wonder. It's fantastical, fresh, and frightening from surface to seabed, with a story that keeps on surprising you. Even after 50 hours you have to discover stuff and can chase secrets in this beautiful underwater world. From the shallow, murky kelp forests to the surreal, alien shark-infested expanse of the underwater islands, the surprises never seem to cease as you push to explore further and deeper. One of the most unexpected things about Subnautica, in comparison to other games in its genre, is that it's legitimately terrifying. Subnautica further cements its horror credentials by sometimes making you helpless against enemies. Subnautica expands into an intense and challenging game that maintains considerable beauty and mystique across its massive environments. It's so magical and otherworldly that it practically pains you to stop playing, even when you're filled with dread. Subnautica's story, scares, and beautifully rendered underwater setting make it one of the most fascinating survival games around. You will always have to grind away to a certain extent to gather necessary resources, but the overall experience is both accessible and refined. Horizon Zero Dawn is an open-world game where story is as important as scale. It fits all the basic hallmarks of an open world, it's gorgeous, it's loaded with collectibles, there's variety in the terrain and the encounters, and most importantly, you can ignore a lot of it and just crack on with the story. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel like it's a real place that reacts to you or to any of the other folk who live in the surrounding areas. Machines are gathered in predetermined areas and just kind of stand there until you disturb them. Horizon Zero Dawn also has a lot of collectibles that we can collect. There are a total of 60 items that we have to find in the form of Banuk figurines, metal flowers, coffee cups or viewpoints, to eventually be rewarded with achievements. That's not exactly little either, but it keeps within limits compared to other open-world epics. Especially since we can buy treasure maps that make the search easier. So if you get involved in this scavenger hunt, you can learn quite a lot about the game world that you would otherwise miss. Since the collectibles have no effect on your trophy progress, the achievement hunters among you can breathe a sigh of relief while the explorers rub their hands with glee. The Pirate Adventure title is an open-world game that allows the player and friends to grab a boat and plunder an ocean full of tropical vistas, dangerous terrain, and slay a myriad of monsters. Sea of Thieves offers a diverse and unskippable day and night cycle with new challenges, like lantern visibility and hidden players. The game is designed around piracy. The player is under constant threat of thievery on the high seas. The game itself offers players the freedom to do whatever they want within the confines of the game's established rules. Within those confines, the player must overcome barriers to best traverse the waves with the methods offered. One of the most appealing things about these new adventures in Sea of Thieves is that the player's actions affect the world. The major plot points of the story are created by players voting on what happens, based on their actions. The community gets to decide on the direction, because they spent the time and invested in the world. With each new chapter, a bunch of new things will happen. Players' ability to influence what happens in each chapter is one of the best parts of Sea of Thieves. GTA 5 is one of the most chaotic and interesting living open worlds since years. It's not just the city as a concept though. It's not just how it feels lived in because of the NPCs and systemic interactions you can have with them, or that they have with each other. It's the city itself, from the Dust Bowl to the freeways. No other urban open world comes close, almost a decade later. Despite being an extreme parody of Los Angeles, Los Santos feels like a living, breathing, an organic city where the AI citizens function and behave more believably. Their AI paths are definitely handled more meticulously. Still, when it comes to open-world missions and gameplay, not many can match or surpass the GTA formula. Its movie-like progression of the narrative makes the players feel more invested in the characters' drama and backstory. Almost all of these quests are incredibly entertaining as you meet a bunch of wacky characters and do some bizarre things. As sometimes you're shooting imaginary aliens, while other times, you're jumping out of planes on ATVs. Overall, GTA 5 is an open-world game where you can have a lot of fun exploring and interacting with this digital world. There's a lot of exciting content for Harry Potter fans to enjoy in Hogwarts Legacy, including familiar locations to explore, magical beasts to find, and classic characters to meet along the way. Hogwarts Legacy is an open-world experience, allowing players to traverse the wizarding world on their own. You can do this by walking, flying on your broomstick, or even riding a mount like the Hippogriff. In general, the open-world game offers many collecting tasks. Among other things, you can find balloons, demiguise statues, astronomy altars, landing platforms, and various chests in the magic world. Hogwarts Legacy is a dream for Harry Potter fans. You explore a huge, detailed world with 14 regions that takes you to all the settings you know and love. You could walk around Hogwarts for hours and still not have seen everything. There are 20 different rooms here alone that are freely accessible, as well as quite a few that can only be opened by solving puzzles. Its open-world adventure captures all the excitement and wonder of the wizarding world with its memorable new characters, challenging and nuanced combat, and a wonderfully executed Hogwarts student fantasy that can keep you playing for dozens of hours. The open world of The Witcher 3 is not only large, but feels alive, almost real. The world offers sprawling meadows alternate with deep forests, big cities and impressive fortresses cover the continent as well as small villages, farms or castle ruins. Whether it's a monster nest, hidden treasure, or even just a truly massive monster that's capable of tearing Geralt apart in just a few hits. If the main story doesn't interest you, simply wander off and hunt some monsters in the woods or investigate murders in a bustling medieval town. This is obviously a huge game, but unlike a lot of open worlds, it's also one that feels lively. In one quest, you reunite two lovers, one of which is now a rotting hag, its tongue lasciviously lolling from its mouth. In another, a corpulent spouse abuser must find a way to love two different lost souls, each of which tests the limits of his affection. Of course, story quests, side quests, and monster-killing contracts typically involve the same set of activities: killing, talking, and activating your Witcher senses, which reveal footprints and scent trails and turn Geralt into a particularly violent private investigator. It is the details that keep every task as inviting as the one that came before. Red Dead Redemption 2 remains the greatest open-world title ever. The emphasis on survival mechanics makes the game feel more immersive, and the unique multiplayer adds to its appeal. with its living, breathing world, excellent soundscape, and the way it bursts with engaging stories to tell you. It feels as if it's the most well-realized open world in video game history. Rockstar Games reinforces the feeling of a living game world with little design tricks that give the player a rare kind of presence in the game world. For example, if you get thrown from your horse in a gunfight and land in the mud, your clothes become visibly dirty. This isn't just a cosmetic problem. If you look too scruffy, you'll be eyed suspiciously by townspeople. The weapons worn on the body also take damage from dirt, which reduces their values. In addition, the player should be careful how he behaves around NPCs. Bumping is not appreciated, and if you run at full sprint towards an already tense lawman, you put your life in danger and alarms the sheriff, who might take it as aggression and start a fight. Red Dead Redemption 2 has the best open world, mainly because of its scope but also how natural the world feels. It feels as though the events of the open world are actually happening regardless of your interaction. Elden Ring's lack of a quest log is one of its best features. There aren't really any traditional RPG quests in Elden Ring that ask you to do things like kill X bears for X pelts or deliver certain items to NPCs. Quests in this game, such as they are, usually involve you meeting an NPC in the world and figuring out what you can do for them. For instance, you'll encounter a character who mentions that his family once ruled these lands from a castle in the south that they lost years ago. That exchange is meant to inform you that there's a location to the south you may have not found yet, and that you may be able to return to that character after you've visited it. In Elden Ring, though, there's rarely a moment that you don't feel like the main character of your own adventure. Yes, you can skip and overlook things in Elden Ring, but you never feel like you're missing anything because the adventure you've chosen to embark upon always feels most important. Elden Ring is an open-world RPG and not an open-world game with RPG elements.